The Charlotte Ledger Podcast is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
This episode of the Charlotte Ledger Podcast is sponsored by Crimson Park Digital. For Charlotte businesses, getting noticed and staying visible is tougher than ever. That's where Crimson Park Digital comes in, a boutique marketing agency delivering bespoke strategies for advertising, content, social media, and search engines. They're helping bold, surface-focused brands get seen, capture demand, and turn attention into revenue. Ready to bolster your marketing this fall? Visit crimsonparkdigital.com to get started.
Hey, it's Tony Messia of the Charlotte Ledger, and you're listening to the Charlotte Ledger Podcast. You can find out more about the Charlotte Ledger at thecharlotteledger.com. Today, I'm talking with Matthew Seneca and Sarah Hayes Harkins. They are entrepreneurs with a background in dance, building a business based on, of all things, the tango, the Argentine dance known for its dramatic movements and close embrace. They run Tango CLT, a tango school, and also started The Long Room, an event venue in Plaza Midwood. So we're going to talk a little bit today about entrepreneurship, running a business, the events industry in Charlotte, and, of course, the tango. I love talking with entrepreneurs and finding about the really wide range that people have for starting businesses, all the ideas out there that I certainly could never conceive of. So maybe we could start by you telling me a little bit about your backgrounds and how you crossed paths and got the idea to start something new.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony. So I have originally a background in theater, and I was an actor for a large part of my 20s, but I was also dancing during that time as a hobby. And then when I turned 30, I transitioned to becoming a high school English teacher, which I then did for a good 13 years. And that's when I moved from Philadelphia to North Carolina. And during that time, I had a very rewarding career as an English teacher, but I was also starting to focus more seriously on Argentine tango as a hobby. I found it actually here in Charlotte, where there was still is a very good tango instructor called Daniel Arredondo, who introduced me to tango and kind of opened my eyes to its beauty.
What was it about the tango that drew you in?
I think it's depth. The fact that with a lot of different dances, like partner dances or social dances, you sometimes often just express maybe one or two colors. Like, for instance, Lindy Hop or West Coast swing is exciting, or salsa is, happy and celebratory. But with tango, you have all these other colors, such as pathos and meditative qualities as well, and a kind of there's almost a kind of a spiritual dimension to tango that really, really captured me. And also the technique it's a little bit more. The technique, you can study it for a very long time and continue to improve at it. So those are the things that drew me to it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue on the how you got to where you are.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to get back more into my roots, which was performing arts. And I was, at the time, my tango practice had evolved to the point where I was teaching classes and hosting a small practica by myself, but it wasn't picking up much steam. And then the pandemic hit. And so everything just, changed. And so this had a sort of paradoxical effect. It was very rough for my teaching career. It was the moment when I decided that I had done teaching enough and needed to move on to another career. And so that was happening. And then it was right during the pandemic that I also met Sarah. And I want her to chime in a moment, because she was dancing at Charlotte Ballet at the time, and her whole season was canceled. And so we were both kind of casting about, looking for a creative outlet. And I was studying tango on Zoom at the time, and with these two master teachers in France, believe it or not. And they said, you should take some ballet lessons. It would help make your dance look prettier and clean up your lines a bit. And so I said, okay. And that is the point that I met Sarah. And that was when kind of a lot of things started to change for me.
Sarah, tell us about your background and then sort of how you linked up with Matthew and then where it went from there.
Yeah. So I am a former professional ballerina from Charlotte Ballet. I spent my entire career at Charlotte Ballet. Training, I went to North Carolina School of the Arts for high school, their high school dance program. And after graduating, moved to Charlotte, auditioned for the company, and spent 1 year in the training program and then joined the company the next year. So I had been, right before I met Matthew, when the pandemic hit, sort of like planning, or at least starting to think about, what is my life going to be after ballet, because I knew that I couldn't do it forever. And, age is a factor. I think I could have kept dancing physically for a lot longer, but it's also just like a life thing. It's like I wanted to have a little bit more of a regular life, a little bit more home life. I was thinking about having children and all these things. And I was like, I just don't think that the schedule of the ballet is what I want anymore, maybe. But it took some emotional struggling to kind of get there. So I think in the pandemic, I hadn't really decided. But it was such a big shift and this huge, break in the schedule and our training and in the show that we were doing. We actually canceled Sleeping Beauty the night before opening night. It was like March, 10th or something like that.
2020.
In 2020, yeah. And I was supposed to do Aurora, and I was so excited for this production, and we just had to literally shut everything down. I was in probably like the best shape of my life because that was such a difficult role.
Yeah, really, that era really upended a lot of things very suddenly. All right, so Matthew was looking for some ballet, maybe be a little more graceful or something like that. It sounds like you two met up. So where did the idea to start a tango school come from?
That's a great question, Tony. I had already been teaching prior to when I met Sarah, but I did not have a regular dance partner. So I was trying to do a lot of it sort of solo and on the schedule of a school teacher, which was challenging on both counts. And so I had been learning ballet from Sarah for a few months, and then a light bulb went off in my head. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I do know someone. They have a work ethic. They're a fabulous dancer. We get on well. The only issue is they don't know tango. And I said, but I can fix that. I can, what? And I realized what was more important to me in a dance partner was work ethic and consistency and being able to get along well. And if those pieces were there, the tango part was going to come. And so I sent Sarah, and actually I was also studying ballet with Alessandra Ball-Janes. The two of them were sort of partnering on a little ballet studio. And I sent them an email inviting one of them to be, to practice with me. And I thought they were going to be like, psh, out of your league. And but Sarah said, yeah, I'm not doing anything right now. The ballet season is canceled. Sure, I'll practice with you. So that's how we teamed up as practice partners. And so then it just sort of evolved from there. We ended up practicing 2 or 3 days a week for quite a while. And during which time Sarah was pregnant. So the first 6 months of our practice partner, her belly was growing and growing and growing, and then it shrunk again. She had her baby. But then when the pandemic began to recede, we started teaming up to teach dance together, to teach the classes together. And so we became, dance partners.
So what made you think, a lot of advice people get when starting their businesses, follow your passion, that kind of thing. And that's good. But what made you think that this is actually a business? What made you think, hey, there's a real need for this that doesn't exist out there in the market and we can help fill it? Was there a light bulb moment where you're like, wow, this could actually be a good business?
Well, I think that I knew from the get-go, I think we both knew from the get-go that there would not be enough demand for Argentine tango by itself to sustain a full-time business. And so we were, having a lot of conversations about, because we wanted to dance, we wanted to have this, creative practice, and we also wanted to sustain it. And so we had to kind of broaden our horizons a little bit and ask, well, what could we do that is viable, that could also sustain this dance practice? And that was a long journey ourselves. And Sarah, do you want to, jump in here for sure.
Yeah, I think the conversations were very so broad. We talked about lots of different possibilities and what could work. And meantime, I was still dancing with the ballet and I was juggling the idea of wanting to retire. And I needed also to know that I would have some security after retirement, that I would have a job of some sort. So we started primarily looking for space. And that was the thing that was sort of like the big question mark. Where are we going to do these classes? And I think Matthew started looking at real estate, and it was kind of like, well, how are we going to afford whatever space that we get? And then I think the events thing just kind of popped up naturally over like many conversations. We were like, well, we could rent out whatever space that we do these classes in for private events, public events. And then that ball really started to roll. And then we found the space, which was 1111 Central Avenue, the long room eventually. And I think the space, once we knew we wanted it, and then the renovation ideas and everything started to sort of come together with the look of it and what it was going to be and how we were going to organize it, and like what type of event space it was going to be. And then that really started to get us more honed in on the idea of events and how that was going to help supplement the tango.
So just to be clear, it sounds like neither of you had any background in events or anything like that, right? So that must have been, and I mean, on the one hand, you can look at it and you can say, well, how hard could it be? You buy something and rent it out. But I'm guessing there's a lot more to it than that.
Absolutely. I mean, you're correct in that we don't have a background in hospitality or event planning per se, but we're both performing artists. And so I have had experience directing plays and organizing a lot of events at the high school where I taught at. And my background is theater and production. And Sarah, too, has a significant background as a performing artist and knows what it's like to rehearse and stage and perform a show. And events like a birthday party or a wedding are not that different from a play. There's lines to be said. There's tables and chairs. There's lighting. There's an audience. There's, actors and participants. And so it's, and if you think about it, sometimes, directing a musical or performing in a show there's at least as many moving parts to that as there is to put on a birthday party or, stage a wedding. And so although I think our backgrounds kind of, we're not an exact match for what we're currently doing, but they're close enough that we had some idea of what, at least how to get started.
Right. Yeah, I want to dig into this a little bit more. I mean, so tell me a little bit about some of the things that you learned that were kind of eye-opening to you, because, I mean, like you're saying, it's not an entirely foreign field, but I'm guessing you're more comfortable probably, teaching dance than managing real estate essentially. Like, tell me some of the things you had to learn, some of the things that were surprising to you as you started down that path.
When we first started talking about opening the long room, my biggest fear, I think, was that I had never had what I called a real job, in quotes. My job was extremely specific. I just had to be really good at dancing, and I had to show up on time, and I had to have work ethic, but I had not ever done any clerical work, administrative work. I barely used my email except for to, make sure I knew what schedule I was on and things like that. So I had a lot of reservations and fears about coming in and being successful at something that I had never done. But I think that Matthew's right. Like, a lot of my skills actually have played in pretty well with everything that we've needed to do. But, of course, there have been learning curves and just things as simple as Word documents and spreadsheets and things like that I didn't really know what I was doing. But it just takes time. You have to, put your nose down and get to work. And then eventually it all started to make sense.
We'll be right back to the conversation, but first, this episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast is presented by Crimson Park Digital, boutique marketing for Charlotte's boldest brands.
Tell me a little bit about the intersection between the events and the tango side of the business. What are some of the events that you do? It sounds like you have your own events. You obviously rent it out to people. I mean, what's the intersection there?
That's a great question, Tony. I To me, at the bottom of things, the Argentine tango, to me, is sort of the soul of the long room. The spirit that tango brings to the space and how tango has influenced many of our decisions in even creating the space. Tango to me is kind of the everything that we do in the long room sort of has to be in the spirit of what tango is. And what I mean by that is, to me, tango is about community. It is about face-to-face human connection. It is about maybe worrying less about people's personal politics and focusing more on just being kind to each other. And there's also an artistic element to tango that I really think is very worthy and beautiful. And so we have this arts focus overall, which I think is something that distinguishes us a bit from a more general event space, which doesn't have that same artistic focus. You know, every one of my staff members, both Sarah and Megan and Sarah Ingle, are all professional dancers. And so we all bring, you know, we're all working artists in our own ways. And so that also, I think, you know, you could look at it more shallowly and say this affects our brand, you know, this is our brand, you know what I mean? We have this arts focus, but I think it also goes a little bit deeper than that as well. Now, I think the challenge can be to, you know, for the public and for ourselves, you know, figure out how much time and energy we spend on the long room, how much time and energy we spend on tango, how to distinguish those two brands in the eyes of the public. Oh, are you a dance studio? No, we're an event venue. You know, you can rent us, you can come in here. That sort of thing can be challenging. And we also put on events that sort of do combine the two different entities. So for instance, on Sunday, October 12th, at 2 p.m., we are doing an amazing performance called Una Noche entre Sueños, which means a night among dreams. And it is going to feature contemporary tango music composed by living Argentine composers and played by a wonderful professional bandoneon player. Bandoneon is the accordion-like instrument. It's actually a concertina that is the iconic instrument of tango, as well as a cellist. And it will feature 12 professional dancers that Sarah and Megan have brought in to choreograph original dance pieces to this performance. And so Sarah will be performing a couple times in it. She'll be dancing a tango with me, but also performing, I think, solo and choreographing as well. And we've roped in several current members of Charlotte Ballet and a number of other wonderful contemporary dancers. Megan Payne will also be choreographing some of the pieces, and Maurice Mouzon Jr. will be too. So that's all happening on October 12th. And that is part of a series of performances that we as the Long Room are presenting, called The Long Room Presents. Sarah, you want to tell us a little more about The Long Room Presents?
Yes, I would love to. So The Long Room Presents is this idea that we came up with that was basically like, this space, we want other people to use it, but we want to use it ourselves. That's always been the goal. And yes, that's for tango classes and events, but then also just for our own artistic interest in the community. And one of the things that we said from the very beginning when we opened the Long Room was that we wanted it to be an affordable space for artists. So our rates are very different when it comes to artists. And also, we want to provide the space for artists that we want to promote, want to support, and that type of thing as well. So this performance, Una Noche entre Sueños, is basically the pinnacle of that. Like, we're finally doing our own very large performance that we're very proud of and working very hard on. But we are also producing other events by other artists, musicians, comedians, theater, musical theater, concerts, choirs, anything that you can think of in the artistic realm. We've also hosted a lot of artists that have had their work up in the walls here. So we're very, very arts forward in that way. And we want to make sure that we're able to do this moving forward, provide the space for people who deserve it and can't afford it in other places in the city.
I'd like to talk a little bit about events, you know, what you've learned about the events industry in Charlotte. I mean, I talk to event planners sometimes, and they're always saying, oh, there aren't really, the city could use some more, you know, good places for events, because it seems like, you know, all the all the events are in the same handful of places. What are you learning about that? I mean, how do you, you've mentioned a little bit on how you try to stand out, but what are you learning about the events business in Charlotte?
Yeah, I think that we realized early on that if we wanted to stand out, which we think we already kind of do, but the long room needed to stand out not only in the sense that we're having performances and artists and things like that, but just visually, it's a different space than your typical event space. So when we're talking about birthdays and anniversaries and weddings and things like that, there's not really anything like this space in Charlotte. And it's a very good size for things like that. It's not too gigantic. You'll see a lot of event spaces that are humongous, 300 person and above spaces that are difficult really to have a more intimate party or environment. And so I think we really...
You're at it's about the 2,800 square feet, somewhere around there?
Yes, that's right. And our capacity is 150.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So a little bit smaller than your larger venues, which I think works well for us. And, you know, we have a very industrial look. We have cement walls and exposed brick and a lot of iron and wood. And it's a cool space, honestly. I'm proud of it, like the way that we renovated it and made it really shine. So I think that's something that makes us stand out. And we're very different from your average hotel or something like that.
Gotcha. And so it sounds like you're attracting a bunch of different kinds of events, weddings. I'm guessing there's some corporate type of events, things like that. How is everything going? You've been at this now for, a couple years? Is that right?
Turn two. That's right.
Turn two. I mean, how is it going? Are you happy with where you are? I mean, what happens next? What are still some of the challenges or things you have to work on? What's going on?
Very good question. I think that, and we've just been talking about this recently, that, growth is a challenge. It's the challenge you want to have, but as we get busier and busier, our processes and systems become more challenged, right? It's like the chaos of an event is like water, and like we're a ship, and if our ship is not tight, water starts to seep in different places, and so we have to sort of we're constantly, I think, evaluating our work processes and having a lot of conversations about that, especially lately, and managing, because what's happening is, it's a good thing. What's happening is that we're getting busier. I think we still, I would like to see maybe 1 to 2 more large events per month in the space. I think if we got 1 to 2 more large events per month in the space, we'd be able to go forever. And we're getting there. We're very much within striking distance. October is looking stacked, and November is looking very busy as well. And we had a very busy spring, and then things dropped off a bit in the summer. I think people don't plan as many, events in event spaces in the summer. So we're learning the cycles of it. And I think we're overall, I would like us to be a little bit busier still than we are, but we're very much going in the direction that we both want us to go. And
right. I just want to indicate on this podcast here, I can see a video of you and you're indicating it's going up. So that's the right direction to be going in. It's not great podcasting, but it's
sure, yeah.
I can see visually, I can tell you he's indicating it's going up. So that's good.
Yeah. And that just that, and it's, in a way, it's okay too, because we, as I just said, are learning to adjust to the more busy, the busier we get. We also have to, there's a learning curve on our side where we manage the sheer quantity of the inquiries and the events that are coming in. So it's I think we're where we need to be right now overall, honestly. And I'll be interested to hear your thoughts too, Sarah.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that we are hitting a sort of growth period when it comes to the amount of events that we're having is also because we have so many different types of events. So it's not like I'm having a birthday party 3 times a week and that's all we have to do. Every single event is completely different. Some of them are public-facing events with tickets, and we have either the bar open or not, or there's vendors that are coming in or not, and there are performances that maybe have multiple performers or multiple DJs or multiple all kinds of things. So there's a lot of planning that tends to go into these events. And so I think that the broadness of our types of events that we can house also gives us a lot of extra work, which we're more than happy to do. But we do have to figure out how to manage that and how to, make sure that we're holding our own boundaries and things like that, things that we just never knew because we didn't work in the events industry before. So it all comes with time. But I think that being this type of venue that has this many different types of events is exactly what we want to be. So that is the goal. And it makes me happy to know that I can have a theater performance in here on a Saturday night and a fashion panel the night before and a birthday party next weekend and a wedding in October. I've got the full spectrum of everything that you can imagine. We even have an EDM concert in November. A pretty prominent artist, actually, I think is going to be headlining that. So it goes all over the place, but we're proud of it.
Well, that's exciting. They have that wide range of different kinds of things going on. Just wanted to close out asking you a little bit about the tango side of the business. What is the market like for tango in Charlotte? Are there other tango schools or people giving tango lessons? I know that with Tango CLT, I know you have like we were talking about, your own events. I mean, it sounds like you have people coming in from across the state, to attend some of those. I mean, how would you describe the landscape of the tango in Charlotte?
Absolutely. Tango has been in Charlotte for over 20 years. In fact, I'd say it's getting close to 30 years. And again, it was brought to Charlotte by my first instructor, Daniel Arredondo, who before he came on board, there was no Argentine tango in Charlotte. And he built a small but sustaining community of tango dancers in Charlotte. And it was always, these are not professional artists. We are regular people. We're accountants. We're engineers. We're regular, waiters. We're just regular people. And that's what tango is. Tango originally is not really, it didn't evolve from professional artists. It evolved from regular people wanting to dance in the evenings after a hard day of work. And so I think we still have that, that ethos with us today. In a larger sense, in terms of marketing, I see tango as I just learned a word for this in my business school class. It's called a latent need. It's a need that people have but don't know they have. And that's what I think tango is. People, at least in Charlotte, in North Carolina, most people, unless you're of maybe Latino heritage, you're not going to necessarily always seek out Argentine tango, right? You don't wake up in the morning and say, man, I need to take Argentine tango lessons. Some people do, but it's not as common, right? But people do feel lonely and they do maybe move to this city. There's a lot of people moving to Charlotte from other parts of the country or the world who don't know anybody. And so they're looking to meet people and they're looking to feel a kind of soulful connection that may be missing from their life. And that, to me, is the real need. And to me, tango has always fulfilled that need for me as well. When I moved to Charlotte, I didn't know a single person. I knew my cousin. I knew one person in this whole city when I moved here. And tango became my home, my social life when I came to this city. And so we have to go out and cross other people's paths, right? We have to, market ourselves well and present ourselves as a place that you can go where you're going to be welcomed and you can have this wonderful combination of social community, but also artistic and creative expression as well. And that plus we worked really hard to get on the top of the Google search listings also.
So it's part letting people know that this is out there and tapping into their inner passions and part SEO gamesmanship. So it's a little bit of both.
I have something to add to that also, if that's okay. I think also what we realized is that consistency was really important.
Yes.
We started out doing Tango Tuesday, and then we switched it to Tango Thursday. And it was always kind of like based on the venue schedule because we didn't have our own venue yet at that time. But once we started doing it at the Long Room and we chose Wednesdays, and Wednesdays were our night of the week for tango. And we'd been doing it now probably a year, Matthew, on Wednesdays or close to it. I think that consistency has really started to pay off, especially this summer. We're seeing a really consistent amount of people coming every single week. And it's so fulfilling and wonderful. We have a beautiful community, amazing adults that live in Charlotte and work in Charlotte and want to come here every Wednesday and do tango. And it makes me so happy. So that consistency has really seemed to be the thing after a while that's really started to pay off.
Well, great. That sounds like a great place to end things, and I can feel the passion you all have for this business and what you're building, and it makes a lot of sense since we're talking about the tango. Thanks a lot for joining me. Great talking with you, and good luck to you. If people want to find out more about the Long Room or Tango CLT, how can they do that?
Great question. What do you think, Sarah? Where should they go? Instagram or our website or both?
I think you could always do both. I think Instagram is the quickest place that gets updated the fastest. So our Instagram handle is Tango CLT or at Tango CLT. And then also tangoclt.com is our website. And we try to update everything on all accounts. But the main thing that you need to know is that we do tango every Wednesday at 7 p.m. at the Long Room. We have a beginner lesson at 7 and then an intermediate level class after that. And then we social dance until 11 p.m. on Wednesdays. And then every month we have a tango brunch, which is our best event, I think. And it is awesome. Everybody comes around 11 o'clock on Sundays. It's always the first Sunday now. We're going to change it actually. First Sunday of every month starting in November. That'll be November 2nd. And it is a lovely time. We have a catered brunch that's included in your ticket for breakfast. We have unlimited specialty coffee that's included in your ticket. And you can sit, you can eat, you can enjoy. You can even just come to watch the dancing if you like. But the community will be there and dancing for about 3 hours on the first Sunday of every month.
Well, very good. Well, thanks a lot, Matthew and Sarah. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's a wrap. To our listeners, thank you for listening. This episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast was produced by Lindsay Banks.
This episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast was presented by Crimson Park Digital. Get your brand seen, capture demand, and turn attention into revenue now. Visit crimsonparkdigital.com to get started.
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.